go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, December 16th, West Fargo City Commission meeting. Before we call the meeting to order, I'd ask everyone in the crowd to please silence your cell phones with the exception of emergency personnel. Please join the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Present.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Let the record show all commissioners are present. Commissioners, the first order of business is item D is to approve the order of the agenda. It has been presented and in your packets.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Anderson moves to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda of December 16th, 2024 as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes on December 2nd. The minutes have been distributed and are in your packets.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2024 as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the building permits report. It has been presented to you and is in your packets.
Motion to approve?
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve the building permits of December 16, 2024 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve building permits as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We have items A through I.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the consent agenda as distributed and presented this evening.
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items A through I. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We now move into the regular agenda. First order of business on the regular agenda is public comment. Members of the public will be allowed 2 minutes and 30 seconds to address the City Commission. They must have pre-registered. Madam Secretary, do you have any? We move out of the public comment portion and we move into item number 2, public hearings. We have no public hearings this evening, so we pass on number 2, and we will move on to number 3. Number 3 is the City of West Fargo Handbook. Sarah Goshevic, Director of Human Resources. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioner President and Commissioners. As you know, we have been going through a review of our handbook for the employees. We sent out a draft for you to review at the December 2nd meeting, and then with just very few changes after that, have the final version for 2025 for you to approve tonight if you feel so. Changes to the handbook, larger changes to the handbook have been given to you in your agenda packet, and so you can see those. Other changes would be grammatical and easy ones in nature. So I'm looking to see if you have any questions.
Questions? Commissioners? Anyone?
Is this an action item?
Yes, if
Yes,
we
it
could get approval for 2025.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the amended City of West Fargo Handbook, Employee Handbook. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the amended West Fargo Handbook, Employee Handbook, excuse me, as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Good
Thank you.
evening. Item number 4 is an abatement hearing for 1280 Goldenwood Drive, West Fargo, North Dakota. This is an action for the Board of Equalization this evening. We're going to call on Mr. Nick Lee for the presentation.
Do we have to convene?
Good evening, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners. Today you meet as a local Board of Equalization here, abatement 4568 on 1280 Goldenwood Drive. All the information that was provided beforehand is in your hands, and you've been able to review it. At this time, I suggest you open it up to the applicant for any comments.
At this time, we are in the Board of Equalization, the City of West Fargo. The City Commissioners serve on the Board of Equalization. So, does the person appealing this wish to present this evening? Good evening and welcome. Please step to the podium and state your name, please, and address.
Hi, I'm Amanda Jensen. My address is 1280 Goldenwood Drive in West Fargo. I filed the abatement form because I had been here previously asking for an adjustment to be made to the valuation of our home because it was significantly higher than what we received for a valuation from the bank when we got our construction loan and when we built, and had asked for an adjustment. It was lowered a bit at that time, but it just still felt like it was significantly higher than the bank had given us not that long ago. So we did get a private appraisal to see what they believed our house could be sold for, and it was significantly lower than the city still has the house valued at. So at this time, we are requesting adjustments to, we did get the appraisal in 2024. A copy has been provided. We also did a valuation of the lots in our development because our lot is significantly overvalued per square foot compared to all of our neighbors. The building control line is so far forward that when we were looking in the neighborhood, we had gone through the process to combine 2 lots because we weren't able to build, because we couldn't build a deep enough house because the river made the building control line so high up on the property that we couldn't build far back enough. We had to build wide. So we went through the process, combined the lots, and therefore we had to assume 2 lots worth of special assessments. And so the response that I keep getting is that we have the valuation and the accounting for 2 lots worth of special assessments being added to our property, which is then being added on to the appraised value of our home to get to the valuation the city has arrived at. But it's close to over $100,000 more than private appraisers say that we can sell our home for. So at this point, we believe that both significantly our lot is overvalued, which I think is the bulk of the issue. I don't think that the property improvements themselves are that overvalued, but the primary issue is the land itself. There was a significant, so typically the special assessments are added on to the value of the property when it's purchased initially. If you go back and look at the historical additions, when we closed and got our certificate of occupancy, our land value rose significantly, and then there was another increase when we closed on our construction loan, and it was deemed like a final build. So it really does look like the special assessments have been taxed onto the value twice when you look at the numbers and the historical additions and increases over time. So I'm asking for an adjustment from 2023 down from our 2024 appraised value to account for the increases that have been, I think it's been around 10 to 15% annually the last few years, the increases. And then eventually I would ask that the 2024 value be decreased to at least down to what our appraisal is, because that's what they said, they indicated they didn't believe we could get any more than that for our home. And the city currently has it appraised, I think it was like 60,000 higher, if not more. But I have all the numbers and everything. I provided all the documentation, the private appraisal, the original bank appraisal, and all the other documentation in support of the argument. And we would just ask that an adjustment be made down to at least the fair market value for taxable purposes.
Thank you, Mrs. Jensen. Anything else that you'd like to share with us? Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Zundell.
So just for clarification, I think when I'm looking at the report on our end, it looks like your building permit for your house itself was issued for $690, and it looks like you purchased separately the land for $178,863. So that would include the balance of the specials. Is that or is your argument that the 178,863 was included in the 690.
Well, I don't know where the 178's coming from.
So it looks like
Is
there was
that-
a July 2019, there was a land sale for 2 lots for $100,000, while also assuming a balance of $78,863 in specials.
Mm-hmm.
So my question would be, when you purchased your house and you took out a mortgage on the house, what did they show the sale price of your house to be?
So the construction loan was a one-time close, which is why I think there's some confusion, but the closing, like, price, the loan was like 600 some thousand, and the appraised value was 720.
And then with
On the
this,
whole, the land, the build, everything.
and with that 600 and something for the loan, did you put down cash on top of that, so the total value would have been above 600 and whatever?
720, we had to come up with, it was a 10% down. So I think the original loan, we had to have a 10% down. So the 720 was basically what they said the end construction product would be valued at, and we had to come up with 10% of that. And then the rest, which we used to basically pay off the lot loan. And then the rest we had to use to build the house.
Yep.
And so
So
the total in cost,
720.
720 was the valuation, and some of that was, I can't remember exactly how all the details worked out, because it was like a 3-step process, and there was
Yep.
a lot to it. We had to get a bridge loan when we sold our house and stuff, so I can't remember exactly when money moved where, but it was 10% down, and then the loan was the difference between, because we could only get up to the full final value of the loan, and then it was a 10% down construction loan agreement, so.
And then it looks like another permit was taken out for $95,000 for an in-ground swimming pool.
So that was a separate, we were on a waiting list, but that was included in the appraisal of the 720. Because the whole plan had to be approved as part of the construction loan. That's what they valued the pool at, but that was in the price of the loan.
Of the 720.
And they also told us repeatedly, the bank and our realtors told us not to do the pool because they said you never get the value out of the cost. They cost way more to put in. They said it can actually hurt your home. But yeah, so that was included in that money came out of that original loan.
That
And
original
that was
loan. So it wasn't a
included.
separate sub item.
That wasn't a separate thing, no. We just were on a waiting list. We couldn't get it done until the second year we lived there. But it was part of that $720,000 valuation. It actually included more than we were able to do. We were going to finish part of or all the basement. We had to cut the whole thing out because there wasn't enough money left to do everything we had planned. So that $720,000 appraised value included stuff we didn't even do.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Jorgensen.
According to your insurance, what is your RCV?
I'm sorry, what was that?
According to your insurance policy, what is your RCV?
I'm not sure what that is.
Replacement cost value. If your house burned to the ground, what's it insured for?
I think 600 something. I think we had to do the value of the loan we had outstanding.
So,
It's under 700. It was,
so you're
they-
underinsured.
for what they're saying, yeah. Essentially, yeah, I believe. We just had to make an adjustment. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I
No, that's-
didn't come prepared with those numbers.
Yeah, no.
But, no, our insurance company, I think they took a look at, because we did have to do an adjustment after the fact, recently. Well, not recently, in the last couple of years, but I think it was like a certain percentage of what our mortgage was, 600 something.
I would talk to your insurance company and so you're not underinsured.
We have a, umbrella policy.
Oh,
Well, I certainly understand the questioning that Commissioner Zundell has as far as the numbers of adding them up, if you will, because of the 100,000 purchase for the lots, plus the special assessments is how you reach the 178,863. Then your building permit for your house was 690, and then the addition of the swimming pool was a separate permit that you took out. So I can certainly understand how the methodology that the city of West Fargo has used is, practical, right, and just. for your information, where we're also looking at is we also have 8 other properties that, that have sold and land valuations. And of course, what it boils down to is you do the calculations and you know what you paid for by square foot. I mean, so, so you could, Mr. Lee, has Mrs. Jensen seen any of this data?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think some of it in piece, but not in final form.
Okay, so the Board of Equalization here has seen the property values, the values in like structures, like lot sizes and those types of things. So if you take a look again, just at the at the cover sheet of this, the information that Commissioner Zundell was talking about would certainly lead us to believe that the valuation conducted by our assessor's office is a pretty close to true value. Now, your earlier comment, you made the comment about you feel that the land is overvalued?
Right, so if you take a look, and I think I'd provided a graph, I'm pretty sure it was in my original paperwork, but per square foot, our lot is like 3 to 4 times the cost of per square foot of all the other lots around us. And I think part of my concern is that when we purchased the 2 lots, we went through the process, we had them, the combining of the lots was approved, and we assumed 2 lots worth of special assessments. And part of the Century Code and part of the rules and the laws in North Dakota that allow the city to add on the special assessments to the value of the home is that there's an assumption that those special assessments are bringing a value to that home. But we're assuming 2 homes worth of special assessments, but we're not getting 2 times the value. So we're paying twice as much for the park as the home next to us. We're paying twice as much for the street in front of our house. We're paying twice as much for all of, all the infrastructure that those special assessments paid for. We're paying for twice as much as our neighbors, but we're not getting twice the value. So to add on the full amount of special assessments that we assume by combining those 2 lots into one, it's making us pay 2 homeowners worth of value of the special assessments, which we understood when we requested it. We understood that that's what was going to happen, but it was our understanding that our home was still going to be valued as a single home that's only receiving 1 lot worth of valuation for those specials. So to say that we're going to add the whole, basically what would typically be split between 2 homeowners and then our value of, that's not exponentially increasing the value of our home just because we assume twice the special assessments of all the other properties.
Commissioners, I understand what you're saying. Commissioner Zundell.
So I understand your perspective, and I think the Century Code makes some of that difficult. But even if we took the $690 for the building permit and we added the $100,000 for just the land, and we took half of the specials, call it another $40,000 if you're talking about starting with 78 or whatever, 79, whatever half of that is. I'm bad at math, so 40 it is. That would be $690 for the build, $100,000 for the land, and even if we included half your specials, then we'd be at still more than what the overall value is.
The $690, that loan paid for the lot too. So that $690 was actually a $590 for the house and $100,000 for the land. Like our construction loan purchased the land. We didn't separately buy the lot and then build the house. We used the lot loan or the construction loan to pay for the lot and build the house.
Mr. Lee, do we have like what those permits are, especially I guess especially if the pool sounds like it was a separate permit but it was included in the initial permit?
Grab this thing here. Yeah, let me pull it up here. Pull up a keyboard.
They're all very nice homes.
So if you look at page 152 of our packet, it'll show what, the content, or the appeal is on the land value, and there's been 7 lots sold after theirs was purchased, and only 1 was less per square foot than theirs. It ranged from $2.40 all the way to $5.41 per square foot, and theirs is at $2.83 a square foot, even at the full,
Yep.
the full lot.
Yep.
the two combined. So
Yep.
there, it's not overvalued based on recent sales.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, I think,
Yep.
the math of the individual pieces, because it would be my understanding that a building permit would not include dirt, typically. It would not include land. That'd be accurate. Yeah.
There they are. Yeah. I think there might be a little miscommunication with that 690 is they were talking about the 690 building permit that's on it.
I'm not sure where this number comes from. Where does this 690 come? This is what? Like, this is what, because that also says lower level finish. Is that what LL finished means?
Yep, and we did an on-site inspection, so our value does not include a lower level finish, but yeah, that 690 would have included,
Lower
I'm
level.
assuming, because these come right from the building department.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure, we couldn't finish any of the lower level, so I'm not sure how that plays into, I'm assuming this is what was provided when we originally got the permit to build the house before we even started anything? Is that what this is? Okay. I mean, that's not, we didn't do a lot of stuff that was in our original building permit because we ran out of money. And we had to cut out the entire basement. We couldn't do anything off the back patio. So I think our concern is that, the bank gave us a loan. They said, that for what it's going to cost to build this home, it's especially because we built during COVID and it was very, very expensive. They're like, the end value is not going to be worth as much as it's going to cost you to build this stuff. And, even though you take out a permit for the pool, we tried looking at some other properties and, just because it costs, supposedly it's a $95,000 permit to build the pool, if you're not going to be able to sell your house for an additional $95,000 because you've put in a pool, is it just because that's what it costs? Cost doesn't equal value. And the whole point of being able to take some of these permits into account is that it allows the city to tax off the increased value of any improvements that are made. But I wasn't finding anything that made it acceptable to tax this much over the fair market value of the home. The ability to take all these numbers into account is so that you can't, go out in the middle of nowhere, build a $200,000 house, the area develops around it, all of a sudden it becomes a nice affluent area and the house is worth a lot more. The city should be able to tax for more, but, if we can only sell our house for a certain amount of money, I'm not finding anything that says, that the city can then turn around and tax you on a value that's, 60, 70, 80,000 more than that amount. Our house isn't worth that. So it's confusing to me to have all these appraisers say, like, your house is only worth this much, your house is only worth this much. They wouldn't allow us to take out any more money to finish our house because they said it wasn't worth that. But then now we're being taxed on a value that they told us up and down, your house isn't worth that. I think that's what's confusing to us. That's what's frankly upsetting because we had to cut out a lot of things that we had planned and we weren't able to do a lot of stuff because they said it just wasn't going to be worth that and valued at that. At the end of the day. So, and as far as if the original permit was at 690 and that included, I mean, a basement being finished, I think I read that's anywhere from like 50 to 60,000 right there that we need to take off the 690 because we weren't able to do any of that. And there was a lot more in those original plans that we were not able to do because we just simply ran out of money.
I have a question, Mr. Lee. On the data that's on the screen above there, the one is dated 7/29/2019. Would that data been entered at that time when the Jensens were in the process of buying the land and all of that? I mean, so this has been on record since 2019, then 2022, and 2021?
The specials assumed amount, that's what you're looking, yeah, they would have, to the best of my knowledge, they would have known what the specials were on there, because they weren't one of the, I mean, they were early in the process, but I don't believe they were the first ones out there, right? Okay.
Could you respond to one of the points that Mrs. Jensen made regarding the two lots?
Right.
And that they're paying double?
Right, yeah. So special assessments are really tricky for the assessor's office. We're kind of given how we are supposed to use them, and it's not always. Let me just start from the beginning. When a sale occurs of raw land, we are required by the state to take the deed price and any specials assumed to come up with a total value for it. And especially in large special areas, this becomes a conversation we have a lot every year. And one of the things that we have to do then is have that as part of our sales analysis. So all the land, it's part of the land analysis, it gets put into the land value. Okay. Then everything else is built up, just how we do it, you know, to the point about using building permit information. That's just trying to show kind of what real world dollars were put out there for the building. You know, obviously we costing it out ourselves. That's just to kind of show where we compare. Now a fee appraisal, what likely, or I'm not sure I've seen one that hasn't treated it this way, is what they're doing is they're adjusting for those specials. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually discount the value that arrived to for those specials, where we're actually supposed to be adding those specials, as I mentioned before, to the sale price, because it's all dollars assumed. So even on these house builds, you know, brand new house, you pay $400,000, you assume 15 specials, that adjusted sale amount, $450. That's how we got to do it. If the deed price on that was $400, that's probably more likely what the appraisals are coming out at, because they're discounting for that. And, you know, what is the deed price they're coming up for? And that gets to be the confusion. It's hard to explain to people, and they don't always like it, but that's kind of where we find ourselves.
To the point that Commissioner Olson made, and that's in one of the summary sheets that we have, Mrs. Jensen, with regard to the land sales that are out there. The fact, you know, your property is at $2.83 a square foot, which is well within the range, because the value range is $2.40 a square foot to $5.41. You know, it's large lots in the community of West Fargo, river lots, you know. Obviously, it demands a premium because there's not a lot of it left, and even going back to 2019. So
And these are all in Goldenwood.
these are all in Goldenwood properties, and I can show you the pic. Like I said, we have all that data in front of us. All the information on the sales, the square footages, the land, everything. So.
Nick, do you have a sheet you could share with her?
Yep, I just gave her the land sheet, and I'll give her all this. And remember, this is just a recommendation of the county, who's got final authority on this. We can definitely talk, and I'll give her the final form of all this information. I do believe most of it was shared piecemeal through conversations with our residential appraisers, but we'll make sure that everything is forwarded to the county so they have everything she wants them to see, and obviously our stuff will get forwarded to them too, so that's how we'll move forward.
And I commend your department that you have somewhat lowered the valuation. I mean, you were receptive to some suggestion, so that's positive. Does this warrant another meeting between the Jensens and your office, or are we at the point now that this has to, after we act on it, it goes to the county? Obviously, we don't have the final say. The county has the final say.
Right. After you guys vote on this, you know, well, obviously we can talk and explain the process and talk it through some more, but The valuation will kind of be set at that point, so unless something were to totally come out of left field, which we have been through the property and it hasn't changed.
Have you done an on-site visit?
Yep, we've done an on-site visit.
We thank you for that, Mrs. Jensen, that you allow us to do that. That's critically important to make sure that we're not making some assumptions, and we're doing that, so thank you for that. Okay. Commissioners? We're acting as the Board of Equalization at this time. This is an actionable item as to whether we accept the report as from the West Fargo Assessor's Office, as the valuations that's been stated, or do we, you have other suggestions for the Jensen family?
I move we accept our department's evaluation.
So we uphold the,
Commissioner
uphold it.
Olson moves to uphold the valuation assigned by the West Fargo Assessor's Office. Is there a second?
second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the valuation as presented by the West Fargo's Assessing Office. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Anderson?
Are we referring to the upholding of the 2023 value or the current that's listed under 2024? Because the recommendation is to uphold the 2023 value. I just want to clarify what we're voting on.
Which is it?
Good question.
Right, yep, this appeal is for the 2023 value, so that's what you'd want to do. Good
So
catch.
the 801, 900.
801,900, yep.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the valuation presented by the Assessor's Office signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Again, Mrs. Jensen, I would suggest maybe you have one more visit with Mr. Lee and/or Mr. Fukoshi with regard to this, and there's still a process for you to move forward, all right? We are now out of the Board of Equalization, and we move back into the regular agenda. Item number 5 is the contract with the City of Fargo, Matt Bus, for the 2025 transit service. Request for contract approval. We're going to call on Mr. Aaron Nelson, our Director of Planning, and he has a guest with him this evening.
All right, thank you. So good evening, President Dardis and Commissioners. Fargo Map Bus provides contract transit service to the City of West Fargo in accordance with an annual mass transit agreement, which is included in your packet here tonight for the 2025 version. As in past years, under the terms of this proposed agreement, Map Bus will continue to operate portions of 2 fixed route transit routes within the city, as well as paratransit service throughout the City of West Fargo. There are no changes to transit service as outlined with the agreement here. However, I would note that the formula for calculating cost and revenue shares has been updated since last year based on recommendations that come out of the recent transit reorganization study that has been completed since last year's contract. So here tonight from Fargo Map Bus is Cole Swingen, Assistant Transit Director, who can provide a brief update on some of those changes that I just mentioned and can help to answer any questions you may have regarding the updated cost and revenue sharing formula. So before I hand things off to Cole, though, the last thing I would note is that the recommended action tonight is to approve the 2025 mass transit agreement included in your meeting packet, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you may have for staff as well. So with that, Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. So just wanted to provide a little bit of background on that transit reorganization study. Lori Van Beek, the Moorhead Transit Manager, is retiring after 40-some years of service, and that kind of is what led us down this path to take a look at how we are billing different agencies, including yourself, Moorhead, Dilworth, and North Dakota State University, all entities who receive services from us. And in this process, we have worked jointly between the cities of Fargo and Moorhead, as well as other external entities. KLJ ran the organization study to be able to come up with this cost allocation formula, which is what is used to calculate the amount charged for our services going forward. With that, we just want to be entirely transparent as to the expenses for the City of Fargo's Transit Department, as well as factoring in the federal and state and local revenue that we also receive as an organization. So of that, we wanted to give portions to yourselves, North Dakota State University, Moorhead, based on the different factors that contribute to those. So for state funding, that's based on elderly and disabled ridership. So what we looked at that, we kind of took a look at the total ridership, looked at how much was out of Fargo and how much is out of West Fargo, and then applied a portion of the state revenue towards your expenses based on the revenue that we're getting from the state. Same thing for federal revenues. Of that, we receive it based on 4 different buckets, including population density, which West Fargo's population does help us to get additional federal money in that sense. So we'd like to provide that to you as well. The cost allocation spreadsheet itself goes into great detail in terms of all of our different expenses, in terms of fixed route expenses, admin expenses, paratransit expenses, microtransit expenses, which is another service that we offer in some areas. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and provide any additional information that you may need.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Zundell moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Just for clarification, the approval of this agreement, the dollar amount is, it's 300 and some, there it is, $387,786.90.
Yep, that's correct. That is based off of our current City of Fargo Transit Department.
Is the 90 cents negotiable?
I suppose we could go into some costs there.
You
He'll
heard
round
it
it
right
up.
here. He said it through there. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the,
President Dardis?
Round it up.
Mr. Nelson.
One comment. I just want to point out that that is an estimate. And so the actual payment will be based on the actual ridership numbers that take place in 2025.
Thank you for your
So
clarification.
it could be less than the 90 cents you're saying? Yeah, okay.
We have a motion and a second to approve. For information, I was at a meeting recently with North Dakota legislators, with the leadership in Fargo and West Fargo and Moorhead with regard to this and how Fargo subsidizes this in addition to the federal dollars and all that type of thing. And there will be an ask of the North Dakota legislature to consider in their formulas with regard to the dollar amounts, the density of the ridership and all of those types of things. Okay? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Item number 6 is a review the software and request to approve a 2-year contract with Placer Artificial Intelligence Consumer Data Software Tool. We're going to call on Casey Sanders Berglund, the Director of Economic Development for the City of West Fargo. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, President, Commissioners. One moment, I'm going to pull this or move this agenda here. Oh. Okay, so tonight I'm bringing forward a request for a Placer AI, which is a consumer data software tool. Essentially, it uses cell phone data to provide information around the people who not only visit our city, but also where they go, how often they go, and essentially how they, for lack of a better word, how they consume our city. And this software tool is something that is used by over about 4,000 customers, and about 1,500 of those customers are cities or civic entities like economic development organizations or downtown associations. Currently, there are 11 North Dakota users. City of Wapaton is one of them, as well as the Fargo Parks District, Downtown Community Partnership, and the Grand Forks Downtown Development Association. And the Grand Forks Park District currently use this software. I did have a conversation with former staff member of the Downtown Association for Grand Forks and got some of his individual feedback, but other names as far as cities that I think are relevant and similar in size are the city of Sioux Falls and Detroit Lakes also use this software. But to jump in to tell you a little bit more about the demo and talk about what the software offers. This software can arm us with information like a void analysis tool. So for example, it will show us markets or industry clusters that we are missing in which businesses or individuals or consumers are actually leaving our city to make purchases or consume items at different stores, retailers, or restaurants. This is not a software tool that will help us with things like primary sector manufacturing, distribution. This is more of a retail or restaurant type of tool, as well as we can use this tool to compare stores within our city to an overall market. So for example, we can compare how our retail sector compares to things like in Sioux Falls, in Bloomington, Edina, things like that. That way we can educate those businesses who are coming and asking these questions about how I would say residents, but really it's our trade area. It's more than just our residents. How those people who are coming to West Fargo are acting and purchasing. And so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what businesses are asking for because it is different for every business and every industry with what information they're looking for. This information is not something I have access to at this time. And the majority of businesses that I have conversations with are piecemealing some of this information together from different resources, but nothing as robust as this consumer data information. So in the packet, I did want to share a couple of examples during the demo that I think were relevant. So this first example, and I've got to look on here because my vision isn't that great, but this first example is of visitors by origin. I pulled up Junkyard because I think we all are aware that a little over a year ago, we incentivized Junkyard to come into our West Fargo downtown area. Part of the incentivization process for us at the city was talking about activating our downtown area and wanting to welcome visitors from outside of West Fargo. What this report can tell us is that over 60% of the visitors to downtown or specifically to Junkyard are non-58078 visitors. So retroactively, I can understand then that the incentivization that we use for Junkyard in 1 year is moving in the direction that we wanted to and that we intended. One thing that I hear from residents is, you know, you've done these incentives before. How do you know that they work? This is a tool that I would like to use to be able to show that these incentives are working. Without actual data, we can only look at the requests from those businesses. We can piecemeal the information together and show what we believe, but with the data, we can see specifically that these visits make up 60%. A little over 61%. This next visitors by origin, this just simply shows the visits to their location and where they're coming from. So just an additional snippet from this specific report. Jumping to the next metric, I had the consultant pull up information from Costco. And though Costco, we may not be looking to attract another big retailer like Costco, I thought this, again, was another example when someone might be looking at our area, one of the questions I get asked is, why would we be looking to come to this location where your population is, say, around a little over 40,000? Well, what this can show us is Costco gets 2.5 million visits, around 406 visits. And the visit frequency is 6.2, so how often they're coming. But if you flip to the next page, the following page, you can see at the top it says population of 237,675. What that is representing is actually the trade area population that Costco is pulling from. Now, that's not going to be the same for every business in West Fargo. This data would actually pull that trade area specific to that business or that industry as they as it would be based on that PIN for that business. So you can see also you can gather other metrics: median age, median rent, house value. I mean, there's a lot of demographics that can go along with that, but I thought on the last side to just share how that trade area population has increased year over year, quarter by quarter. So just to share a couple of other case studies, there has been how other cities have used this. For example, is when they apply for grants, they're able to potentially be awarded much more than what the software is costs. For example, the Downtown Development Association in Grand Forks, their overall budget for the year is about $58,000 a year that they use for operations, and they were awarded a $100,000 downtown revitalization grant using placer data. And verbally, I've had conversations with them in which in the past they'd applied and didn't even make it to the second or third round. So there's always opportunities to apply for grants. I specifically have not been part of a grant process in which I've been able to use data like this, but this is always a great opportunity when we can use actual consumer data. Just want to check my notes here. I think I'll stand for questions, unless, Dan, you had anything that maybe I missed?
Yeah, I can just add a little bit to it. Casey approached me with this software a little while ago, and we took a look at it. We had an example presentation by the vendor, of which there was commissioner involvement with that presentation. It was she's touching the surface of some of the functionalities that they showed us that are being able to be used. And then just outside of economic development, attracting businesses, retaining businesses, and providing data to these customers of ours that they can use to either run, operate, or decide to expand their businesses. I saw some other functionalities that go just beyond economic development. For example, when we have cruise night, how many people are coming to cruise night? Where are they coming from? What are we drawing? We can use that for marketing our cruise night. We can use that for our communications. So outside of that, and there are some limited engineering things that I thought would be fun to play around to see if we can use it for that. How many people are going through this intersection and where are they coming from? Is it just local traffic? Is it outside traffic? Those type of things. But where I really saw the value was in the economic development sector of the program. But I did see some other functionalities that we can use for promoting cruise night and promoting some of these things that the city partakes in. So after that presentation, it was pretty impressive what they did, and Casey has done some due diligence as far as reaching out to some of the other users that have used it, and has found that it has been instrumental, like she said, in securing grants, and also just being able to represent to their businesses what is going on and where we're drawing from. So I'm in full support of the purchase of this.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Olson?
Could one of you two comment on the fact that this AI data does not actually take personal data. It just,
Yeah,
so the public understands that.
I specifically asked, so they're not tracking how many trips I've made to the junkyard from Dilworth,
Right.
so I can't get into trouble there. And it is all autonomous. It is just, it tracks cell phone data. It doesn't track who it is. It doesn't, I asked the question during the presentation. I said, because this isn't just a West Fargo thing, you can pick a spot in Detroit Lakes with the same program. And so I said, well, can we draw a circle around my parents' house in Detroit Lakes and find out how many times they've came and gone? And they said, no, it has to be a certain amount of people, so it has to be a hub at which it attracts and a certain amount of people, but it wouldn't tell us who is coming and going or anything. So it is all autonomous. It is just a number of users, that type of thing. So it does not track personal data from that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Any other question? Commissioner Jorgensen.
Ironically, I met with Junkyard on Friday, and they were very impressed. I go, this is just by chance we got this, and they were very impressed with the data that you put together, and got to say the demographics of where they were drawing from, and they were real happy that their highest percentage was West Fargo people. So they were very glad to move here.
They did reach out to me right after your meeting and thanked that. Dan did bring up a good point that I didn't think to mention, but when I was hired and I went out and met with businesses, and I continue to set a goal of meeting with pretty much as many businesses that will let me in their door. But every time I meet with them, we talk about, and typically open up the conversation with like, what keeps you up at night? Right now it's workforce typically. But then as we get into a deeper part of that conversation, we talk about, what are your plans in the next 2 years and what makes you successful? It is in several industry clusters. This would make for a really great opportunity to build more cohesive business relationships. And that's part of what I aim to do, which is different than what you would say maybe a traditional economic development association aims to do in the primary sector field. This is, my work looks a little different within the city of West Fargo. Lastly, something I missed to mention, this would be funded through economic development sales tax, is not included in the 2025 budget. Specifically because there was an effort for a few regional entities. We were having conversations about having a regional approach to accessing this tool where all of us would have access with one main hub as being kind of the auditor, if you will, of this tool. After several months of back and forth with not only us as a group and then Placer, the software, they, as a business, decided that this was a precedent they didn't want to set because they didn't think they could replicate it very well in other communities. And then now learning a little bit more about it, it would also have access, it would change how our data would show up for us as robust in West Fargo. So as of recently, went back to them after the budget was passed, went back to them to ask them what a specific West Fargo cost would be rather than being part of an overall regional approach. It's my understanding that some of the other entities will still be looking into this themselves, but that's what brings me here today rather than including that in an earlier discussion through the budget process. Sorry, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
How detailed is a location? Can it like pinpoint the difference between Thunder Coffee, a bookstore, a Noble Hair, VFW Plaza, Junkyard? Like, how accurate is it? And yeah, I guess that's my question there. Just if we want to look at specific businesses, like, do we need want another coffee shop or another kind of public space? Would it be too broad to where maybe it wouldn't represent an accurate picture, right? This is kind of what
Sure.
I'm wondering.
So what I understand is that the data looks at, it's also around time. So for example, if you went to Thunder Coffee and you were sitting there for a certain amount of time, it would look at that as part of the algorithm. I would have to ask specifically how they would how they analyze that data and how that looks. But from the conversations that I've had, they specifically talk about a lot of like event spaces that they work with, and a lot of those event spaces are outdoor event spaces, and that information is pretty robust. And so that's certainly something I can reach out, but they have, since the first demo and now the last demo that I have, they've added a tool in which, for example, Thunder Coffee is a great example because they're not a franchise. Previously, I was less impressed with the tool because it wouldn't recognize Thunder Coffee as an individual business. But now I, as the auditor of the software, can add a specific business and PIN to the business name, or even a green space if I want that green space, and I know eventually I will need data on that, and I can name that. So to that, I think I'd have to ask more specific about what that radius is. But there's plenty of, I guess you could call them strip malls or multi-use facilities that have used this data.
Okay.
I hope that helps
A little bit.
answer your question.
A little bit. Thanks.
Anyone else? Additional questions? This is an actionable item, Commissioners.
I make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the software purchase for Placer AI as presented by Ms. Berglund. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. 4-1 vote.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is a request to hire 2 additional custodians in 2025. Call on Mr. Matt Anbick, Director of Public Works for the City of West Fargo. Good
evening.
Welcome.
Sorry, good evening, Commissioner President, Commissioners. Pull this up real quick. Tonight, yeah, I'm asking for the purchase, or not purchase, approval to increase our fleet facilities budget for 2025 to hire 2 new custodians. Of course, the question right away is why weren't they added into the 2025 budget right off the beginning? And with that, it's just kind of a matter of timing. You know, we got our full-time, you know, part of the budget. We did our FTE requests, or basically in May. We hadn't moved into the new city hall yet. We weren't quite sure what was going to happen with this facility when that happened. We weren't sure the extent or how long it really, we had an idea, but we didn't know how long it was going to take our custodians to clean that new city hall, and to what extent, like that we had 4 large bathrooms in there, how that's going to shape out. Had conversations with our fleet facility staff, and we just didn't know, you know, where we were, you know, with square footage wise, if we were going to lose, you know, PD was going to remodel here and we lose 20,000 square feet here and we only add 20,000 square feet. Do we really need those 2 employees? You know, I kind of got some feedback from Dustin and a few others on where to go. In the end, right or wrong, I made the decision to just kind of hold off and see where we were. I wasn't quite really comfortable asking for people that I didn't know for sure that we needed yet. We wanted to get that data and understanding that, did we really need them? Could we make it to 2026 budget? But, you know, once we moved into the new city hall, found out that PD was expanding into this facility, so we really didn't lose any square footage here. The library is now having a satellite office, and the new commission chambers will be coming online here in February, March-ish. And we've just noticed that the length it takes to, you know, do that 30,000 square feet of the new city hall, we're just getting too far behind with the staff we have. We need 1 for sure to start as soon as possible, just to get that level of service back up where we would like it to be. And with that additional staff maybe coming online once the commission chambers and the library are up and running, probably around March. We just want to see where we're at with that. And with that, I think the The request would be to not exceed $100,000 to the increase in the budget for 2025. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
So, West Fargo Public Works employees, custodians, they also, besides this facility and the new city hall, do they also do the library?
They do the library, public works facility, and the sanitation facility as well.
So Matt was being very politically correct when he said, "and others." I'm the other. I encouraged him to hold off on this because we did not know exactly how much of this space that would be utilized here for West Fargo PD, as well as what the 30,000 square feet of the new city hall, 2 levels, more bathrooms than we've ever had, which is a positive thing. So I encourage Matt to let us engage in this and live with it for a while as to what the demands were. They've done an assessment. I've seen some of the work that they've done. And so, like I said, I was the one that encouraged them to hold off on hiring until we knew the facts of whether it was 1 or 2. We assumed that we would certainly have to do 1, but would it demand 2? And so, like I said, I was the rock around the neck that talked him out of proposing it in his budget. So, with that, now that we know what we're dealing with in the situation and the demands of that cleaning of the library, and the library is going to have additional space in the what new West Fargo City Hall, which does not increase on that square footage, but it's a different type of demand, again, because of the public utilization of that space. It will require, probably more times per week in order to empty the garbage cans and deal with the bathrooms that are on that end of the building. So, like I said, this is on me as to why we held off this long. But I think it was the right decision to do until we really knew whether or not we had to hire 1 or 2. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Anvik? Please, Commissioner Jorgensen.
And I had a conversation with Matt earlier too, and I applauded him for getting historicals, not just reacting. But the question I have is, the $100,000, that include the benefits as well as salary or wages?
It does.
Okay.
Yep.
2 individuals.
For 2 individuals,
Yep.
yep. It's right around that 50,000 mark for 1 person, depending on the level of benefits. It's very close to right around that 50, usually a little bit under, but if they take the full family package, everything like that, it might be a hair over.
Sure.
But when we're staggering them like this, where we're probably not, I doubt we'd get somebody in January 1. We're probably going to be towards the end of January before we get somebody in, and then stagger that next one into March or later, depending on when we pull that trigger and we feel we need that second one. And with this, we've been trying to pull back, and see if we can't make it to the next one. We pulled back in kind of our non-public spaces at public sanitation. We really want to focus on, like the commission chambers here, in front of PD, all the public facing spaces that we see, because we do have those buildings. We want to maintain those. They are taxpayers' dollars to keep those up, and we're, spending their money, and we want to make sure that they understand that we're taking care of that.
Thank you.
Anything additional for Mr. Anvik? Mr. Anderson?
I struggle with this a little bit, with it being 2 months after the budget being finalized and coming back for a budget amendment, but I can appreciate why it wasn't brought up, and that we're, it's close to $500,000, a levied mill, not million, but, close to $500,000 that wasn't included in the budget, so I can appreciate that, but it's kind of, I waffle back and forth on this one.
I understand
Because of that.
completely, but again, we did not understand, well, Mr. Andrick probably understood it, but I wanted to have some measurable time and experience of what they were doing. Obviously, we'd already moved to hire quite a few employees in the 2025 budget, so this was basically at my request, and so. But after visiting with him at length, and him sharing with me some of what they're dealing with. It is, I'm certainly going to encourage anyone to support the amendment. Commissioner Zundell?
My only comment is being the portfolio holder and, getting the one who gets to talk about your budget a lot with people is I don't think people fully realize how many things Public Works does for other department. I'm still learning every day things that are in your budget that are truly maybe not a function of your facility. So one thing I would like to see transparency on is to what degree are we kind of working within other budgets? So does this cleaning staff count within the PD's budget if they're only in this building? Does the library staff custodian only count within the librarian budget? Because they all kind of submit individual budgets, and ultimately I think your budget and their budget and everyone else's budget gets looked at to some degree siloed before we put it all together. And if we chunked out all the things that are in the Public Works budget that are probably not true public work functions, and we're doing oil changes, maintenance fixes, things like that, I think that would be helpful to guide decisions, at least for me, when we're looking at how many employees you're requesting, when we're looking at some of these things in other budgets. So I know personally, I think it's important to know Public Works does a lot in the other budgets without necessarily getting a cost allocation back. That was something I probably fully didn't understand going into this budget cycle, but I also think lesson learned when we're looking at this and we're adding on to other buildings, I think we should also know, hey, when we add this building on, we're going to have to add basically another employee. Like if we're doing any expansions, I think this is good data to learn to know, well, we're really going to bring on XYZ many employees when we do the next one. It isn't just in a vacuum, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something when we were, like when Nick and Dustin brought up about moving into the new city hall, that was something that we anticipated adding staff. We just were looking at, was it 25, 26? I think once we kind of made that decision to kind of hold off, we were really looking at 26 to do that. But that was also factored in on the total cost of when we were moving in that city hall that we were eventually going to need extra staff.
Any additional questions or comments?
I have one.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
So the money gonna come out of reserves?
I guess fleet and facilities is a general fund, I guess department. So I guess any overage, probably, I guess would talk to Dustin if that would be, or I guess Willie, if that would come out of the general fund reserves, or we can kind of see where our budget goes throughout the year within that. If we have other, vacancies or, some jobs that don't go, by the end of the year, we might have a little bit of, that might not be that full 100,000 that we're over, if we can find some savings and say a piece of equipment and something like that. But if we do, I guess is what we're just asking for permission to go over. And if we do go over, it would probably, probably let Dustin take that one.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. So, like Matt said, we'll track this throughout the year. It is part of the general fund budget. If you recall, that's over $30 million of expense budget. Throughout the year, whether it be staffing costs, a lot of different areas, we have opportunity to save money and not spend the full budget amount on various items. And so when you look at the general fund as a whole, I would anticipate that we would ultimately be under budget enough to afford this. But in the event that we aren't, then yes, you're right. We would look at general fund reserves or other opportunity costs or opportunity funds. But as of right now, we're not asking to use reserves. We're simply asking to increase the expenditure budget for fleet and facilities.
And as he said, it will be tracked.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Move we approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the hire of 2 additional custodians in 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. We have a motion and a second to approve the hire of 2 additional custodians in 2025, not to exceed $100,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries, 4-1 vote.
Thank you.
Item number 8 is the Improvement District number 2290 through 2025 Public Works Mill and Overlay. Mr. Hanson, City Engineer, is presenting. Purpose of this is to approve a resolution amending boundaries of the Improvement District 2290 and approve the engineer's report, authorize a resolution of necessity, and direct the engineer to prepare plans and specifications. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner President Ardis and Commissioners. At the December 2nd, 2024 Commission meeting, the Commission created the Improvement District number 2290 for this project and directed the engineer to prepare an engineer's report, which is attached to this packet. It was stated at that meeting, Public Works and Engineering work together to identify roadways that are in critical need of rehabilitation. The roads being overlaid using Public Works equipment and staff. Per century code requirements, we will be publicly bidding the milling of the roadways as well as the asphalt that we would procure to construct the project. Those items will be awarded in separate contracts. So there will be a specification for the asphalt, and then those are two things that we would need to have outside sources provide that work. Being as though this is intended to be a specially assessed project, again, those portions of the project would be publicly bid. So basically the procurement of the asphalt as well as the milling of the roadways. Since the December 2nd meeting, there was an area that was also identified by Public Works and Engineering staff to also be included in this project, and I will jump down to the district map instead of reading it. It's easier to just show. The improvement district that was shown at the December 2nd meeting was everything in yellow with the exception of this neighborhood right here. And what we're proposing to do is to expand the project to include that area of roadways to be included in the project to be milled and overlaid. Milling and overlaying, it does extend the life cycle of the roadway. If anybody has driven through these neighborhoods, they are in great need of rehabilitation. By doing this, we're hoping to stave off the need to completely reconstruct these roadways for as long as possible and extend the life cycle of these roadways. We will be anticipating passing tonight a resolution of necessity that declares that the improvements are necessary, and there would be set a date of February 2nd of 2025 to hear and determine the sufficiency of written protests against the adoption of the creation of the improvement district. So with the actions tonight, if it is approved, we will be sending out notifications, and the public within this area will have the ability to provide written protest of the creation of the improvement district. Excuse me. We did, in the past, a couple things to note. We did have, if you recall, a south side mill and overlay project where we were going to mill and overlay many neighborhoods on the south side of the city. That project eventually was voted to not move forward with the creation of the district and did not move forward. With that project, we were having a consultant design the project, half the project. We did design the other half of the project, and we were anticipating going out for a public bid to have a private contractor come in and mill and overlay the roadways. And the estimate for that project, if you recall, for a single-family residential home was $4,000 as was going to be assessed for that project. Now, at that time, it was being proposed to assess 80% of the project, but there has been a couple of different workshops where the commission gave a mandate to staff that we need to figure out how to do these projects and not assess our constituents as much. That's where we moved into basically doing the work, the installation in-house using our staff and our equipment. Obviously, there are costs to that, and if you look at the engineer's report attached to the packet tonight, there is $155,000 that we had anticipated worth of those dollars. Those dollars are not intended to be included in the portion of the project that we're assessing. So in essence, the city is supplementing the project by providing our labor and equipment to construct the project. What also has changed since then is with the 2024 CIP, the guideline was that we were going to assess 50% of the cost of these projects. I'd mentioned when I presented the CIP that the mill and overlays, we were looking to just assess the costs of the project that we would need to pay for with regards to procuring the asphalt, doing the milling, and then there are some soft costs that would also be proportioned out. And we've increased the amount of city cost share from what was 20% presented in that south side mill and overlay now to 50%. And the goal, again, for that was to decrease the amount of special assessments to the benefiting properties for each one of these projects. Now, going back to the $4,000 that was presented as the assessment for a single-family residential home and that other project at 80%, if you take that proportionally, if we were to have come forth with that project at a 50% assessment, the assessments would have been roughly anticipated to be about $2,500. Right now, with this method of constructing the project and this new method of assessing the project, we're looking at a single-family residential home to be assessed $1,600, which would be about $900 cheaper than what it would have been assessed as the design and bid that we were doing on the south side. So I would also say that $1,600, the cost of the project, I believe this is a conservative estimate. The goal here is to be conservative with our estimates. There is some contingencies laid into this, and also there's some unit prices that I believe are also conservative, because we don't want to come back later and say what we presented was inaccurate and the costs were more. I fully anticipate that when we get to the final end of this, that the costs of this project and the assessments that we will eventually get to will be cheaper than what's being presented, but they are conservative in nature at this point. So with that, I would entertain any questions from the commission.
For Mr. Hanson. Commissioner Olson.
Does that include the updating to all of the pedestrian ramps to meet ADA? Or is that just the asphalt and the milling?
This is just, what's presented here is just the asphalt and the milling and overlaying. Per the ADA rules and law, all the pedestrian ramps in areas that we are milling and overlaying do need to be brought to current design standards. We do have in the CIP $250,000 worth of pedestrian ramps that is not to be assessed, but part of our ongoing budget every year of doing some ramps. And then the intent for that would be to bid that work out with our annual concrete repair project, because that way we've got concrete contractors that would come in and do that work. That work would need to be done prior to the mill and overlay, obviously, so that way when they come by, that the curb is ready for it. So the goal, actually, just to go down that rabbit hole a little bit further, would be is we're programming out what roads are not only intended to be mill and overlaid in 25, but also we're taking a look into 2026, what we're looking at potentially needing to overlay in 2026. And the pedestrian ramps and that concrete work does take some time. And so what we're looking to do this summer is to actually bid out all the pedestrian ramps that we're going to be doing with this project, and then also include the pedestrian ramps that we would anticipate coming in 2026. So that way our pedestrian ramps get 1 year ahead of our mill and overlays. What that allows us to do is it allows Public Works to program the timing of when they would do the mill and overlays to whatever time of the year they were able to. So they could actually come in and do the milling and overlays in May after all the frost has left the ground and things of that nature, and not have to wait around until August or something after the pedestrian ramps are done. So that work does need to be done, but it is not included in the cost of this project, nor is it intended to be assessed to any of the abutting properties.
Anything additional for Mr. Hanson? Mr. Zundell?
I think it's a good ad. I would say I have gotten the most emails from residents in this neighborhood about the concept of having some type of mill and overlay on the street. So I think it's going to be a very welcomed project in that neighborhood.
The process that we're using is also very favorable to the taxpayers of how we're applying this. You know, this will be tracked. We will gather the data with regard to the city employees and the equipment that we use in this. So, if we have questions with regard to that, how we are applying those expenses to the overall cost of the project, to do a self-assessment as to the efficiencies of this that we're trying to do. The reality is that because we're investing city equipment and employees, it's driving the special assessments down. And if anything that we've heard in the 6 years that I've been up here, and the new commissioners, is that anything that we can do to bring special assessments in at a lower rate to assist in paying for some of these projects for our taxpayers is critically important. And this is one of the methods that we're trying to utilize to do that. But it will be tracked, and we will know what our efficiencies are or the lack of. So kudos to your team and Mr. Anvik's Public Works people for taking on this venture.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything else? This is an actionable item, folks.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jorgensen moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. We have a motion and a second to improve for the approval of Improvement District 2290, which is a 2025 Public Works Mill and Overlay Project, to approve a resolution amending the boundaries of the Improved District 2290, approve the engineer's report, authorize a resolution of necessity, and to direct the engineer to prepare plans and specifications. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Thank you.
We move on to item number 9, which is a 26th Street Northwest, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Crossing, a surface replacement. Mr. Hanson, the city engineer, again will be presenting. The purpose of this discussion is to authorize entering into a cost share agreement with Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. Within the last 2 weeks, I was reached out to by BNSF and to be notified that they have identified this crossing on 26th Street where their track north of the interstate crosses 26th Street. They do have that as a candidate for replacement in 2025. Public roadway crossings are the joint responsibility of the road authority and the railroad, and with this BNSF, as they reached out to me, they said that they were interested in partnering with the city to replace that crossing in this upcoming year. What they've requested is that the city contribute 50% of the cost of the track replacement, which they said is approximately about $1,000 per foot, was the half of the cost that would be the city's share, as well as to provide the traffic control and they said asphalt patchwork necessary on the roadway. It is a concrete road, so I'm assuming that it would be concrete replacement in that area between the crossing and the tracks. The estimate that they gave us was approximately $100,000 outside of us providing the traffic control necessary for the project, as well as our forces would, Public Works forces would be the ones replacing the concrete and potentially any asphalt between them. If we do move forward with this approval, I would work together with BNSF to execute an agreement between the two entities, and then we would coordinate with them to get the work completed. When they reached out to me and asked for it, I said this is spending taxpayer dollars, so I wanted to make sure that I brought this forth, so that way we could find out if there's appetite from this commission to enter into this agreement. And with that, I would stand for questions.
So the work is estimated to cost $100,000. That's our share?
That would be our share.
Thank you.
Correct.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
What is this, excuse me, what is the scope of work?
Scope of work is they would just, I don't know the total lineal foot, I have it in an email, but they would basically come in, take out the railroad crossing, replace the tracks with new, and then in between the tracks there's asphalt, and then there's concrete roadway that they'd have to take out outside of it. So it's basically just replacing that track. It's not like creating a quiet zone or medians or anything like that. It's literally putting it back in place the way it is, but it is in, according to them, it is a safety measure to keep their tracks travelable and safe.
I just don't see that road being 100 feet wide.
No, the road is not 100 feet wide. When they replace the tracks, they do go out a distance from the roadway.
To the next joint or whatever.
Yeah, yep. I believe, if I'm correct, it's you take the right of way of the roadway and add it's like 20 feet approximately, something like that. So it's the right of way plus a little bit of a transition area.
No, I drive that off and I have property over there, so I didn't see anything wrong, but might not meet their standards. So okay, thank you.
And I guess I would also say this is more preventative maintenance, so that way they identified it as an intersection that they would like to replace for their own criteria. I don't know what their criteria was, but this is one that they had planned on replacing. I wish they would have told us sooner than just now, but I guess it is the prior year, so in their schedule they might feel that they're ahead of time, but obviously it's after our 2024 CIP was in place. So this is not anything that we had scoped in the CIP to be planned. It's something that just came up.
Well, I know there's a lot more traffic that uses that road, especially with the two businesses that are up there, so.
Yep.
And in the financial analysis that Mr. Hanson provided us, in the 2024 CIP, there's $2 million identified 2025 for unforeseen projects and expenses such as they may arise, and this would certainly qualify for one of those signs. So it's indirectly in the budget, so to speak.
I make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the 26th Street Northwest Burlington Northern Santa Fe crossing surface replacement in a partnership with Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson. Item number 10 is a local permit application for the West Fargo Parks and Recreation Foundation. We're going to call on Mr. Dustin Scott, our city administrator, for this presentation. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Commission President Dardis and commissioners. Well, typically these permits are put on our consent agenda, but in the sake of transparency and avoiding a conflict, Commissioner Zundell did ask for it to be on the regular agenda item so that she could recuse herself. Really, it's pretty self-explanatory in the application there, the Park District holding a raffle, but if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Commissioner Olson moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the permit application for the West Fargo Parks and Recreation Foundation application. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Zundell, do you agree that the fact that you're going to recuse yourself to this, right?
You got it.
Okay, let the record show that Commissioner Zundell is recusing herself from this action. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Scott. We move on to the city administrators. You still got the mic. Go ahead.
All right, thank you again, Commissioner President Dardis and commissioners. Just a few brief updates here, and then we'll get everybody on their way to catch the whiteout game tonight. Everybody's a Vikings fan, right?
No.
No.
I know they're, yes. Taking my foot out of the mouth. First update, Chief Nielsen asked me to inform the commission that our mobile command unit is scheduled to be here by the end of the year. Talking with Assistant Chief Rick for the meeting, it sounds like people are going to be heading out towards the last week of December to go pick it up and bring it back. So all things go well, it should be here before the end of the year. So any questions on that either myself or Assistant Chief could answer?
This goes back to what, the 2023 budget?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's an expenditure that was approved in the 2023 budget. Okay, please continue.
And just since you point out the expenditures, we did use public safety sales tax to purchase this, a great use of that sales tax, so. Okay, moving on. Satellite library and new commission chambers are coming along nicely. Rachel, one of our communication managers, reached out to the chamber to schedule a ribbon cutting. They landed on March 17th. So mark your calendars, we will have a ribbon cutting on March 17th, and we've decided to use that as an opportunity to have an open house of the new city hall and satellite library and commission chambers. So we're thinking roughly around 4 o'clock, start an open house. That will be right before a city commission meeting. So again, just mark your calendars on that. Any questions before I move on? All good? Okay, and then a reminder that tomorrow evening, we are having a neighborhood meeting for the Westwood reconstruction project. So I forget the time on that, 6 to 8. So we are hoping for a good turnout and share with what information we have with the residents and see how that goes. So
That will be located where?
at the fire headquarters, yes.
At the fire headquarters.
Yep.
I wanted to restate that for the public.
And we will certainly try to record. It sounds like they have some technology issues going on, but we should be able to get an audio recording for sure and upload it to YouTube. So,
Good.
For those that can't attend in person. Quick reminder that our city offices are going to be closed December 24th and 25th for Christmas. Also closed on January 1st for New Year's Eve. So, again, mark your calendars for those. Our website does have all of those events available on our front page. With that, really, I just wish you all a very safe and happy holidays. Any final questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Scott? I don't see any. Thank you.
Correspondence?
Correspondence, please.
Just one. Actually, Mr. President Dardis did share with me a thank you letter from the North Dakota, it's the Career Innovation Center project where we've been donating $120,000 annually. This was our last donation of $120,000. So they sent a nice thank you letter here. And I don't know, Commission President, if you want to add anything else on that project?
Well, they have a number of programs that will be starting out in 2025 that they'll be offering there, and obviously students from West Fargo High School and other local jurisdictions will be sending students to there. So I don't have a full list. I know one of them is agricultural, but they're going to have a number of programs. They're not going to be have a full curriculum at first, but they're gonna build into it. It's a great facility located south of 52nd Avenue.
Very good. That's the only correspondence I have, unless, Emily, did you have anything else? Nope.
All right.
All good. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Scott? Hearing none? Okay, non-agenda items. Commissioners, do you have anything? I have one item I'd like to call to the attention of the community. Is last week, the Golden Drive for Homelessness was conducted. It's a great citizen of our community, Sue Barron, that leads that. They collect food and clothing, but it started out as a sock drive, and it is so very much more than that. This year they collected, was it 36,900 pairs of socks. 36,900. And I am very pleased to announce that the West Fargo PD won the contest. They gathered the most socks. And a special thank you to Engagement Officer Rhonda Jorgensen. She leads that effort for West Fargo PD, and it was absolutely a great event. They had all kinds of different entities that assist the homeless with food and clothing and the like that came through there, and we loaded and we loaded and we loaded more stuff. But this is an amazing event that takes place within our community. The West Fargo Rural Fire Department is a great partner in that, in helping store all this stuff. But if you could have seen the amount of clothing and food that went out the door, and we had homeless shelters and different entities that help those folks from South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota, and there is no administrative cost for all of this fundraising. It is a pure volunteer event, and it is absolutely amazing to witness it. So to our community and to certainly that great leader in Sue Barron, we thank her. She does a great job. Commissioner Jorgensen.
One thing I might add, I attended this, and I'd like to give a shout out to Jay Thomas for doing a show live there. They had the garage door open, Sue's helpers were there, and during the 3 hours, they raised over $13,000.
They have
Just people driving up and dropping checks off.
We had Santa Claus was there,
Yep.
and the elves, the homeless elves, part of the Golden Drive, were there assisting, and they just hold up a fire boot, and people come whizzing by in their cars, swing in, drop some money in the bucket. So yes, $13,000 also from our community. And you're right, Commissioner Jorgensen, WDAY through Jay Thomas. He was broadcasting live there, and that makes it really, really special. And of course, good community partners donated some pizzas, and they donated some food, and there's there's sodas there and water there and coffee there, and so it's a great community event. And if you've not been engaged and involved, I'd encourage you to do it next year. It's what they do is amazing. Anyone else that have a non-agenda item? Does any department head have any non-agenda item? Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner Ardis and Commissioners. Have some good news. If you remember back in May, the Commission authorized us to partner with Fargo and Moorhead to submit for a grant, SMART grant, which stands for Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transport. And we just received word that we did successfully receive that grant through the DOT. The cities of West Fargo, Moorhead, in collaboration with North Dakota DOT, Minnesota DOT, MetroCog, MatBus, Upper Great Plains Transportation Institute, and several engineering and technology vendors all went together to submit for this. We won, again, approximately $2 million for a regionalized and coordinated smart signal system. The project intends to deploy strategic field hardware, cloud-based software to respond to traffic incidents and disruptions better, preparing the system for them and to predict traffic responses. And I'm going to read you something that was sent to me by a traffic engineer, so I apologize ahead of time. This is a big first step towards a traffic operations center, which can manage regional traffic patterns and incidents on a 24/7 basis to enhance transportation safety, improve transit level time reliability, and improve equity throughout system-wide resiliency. Traffic operations centers are commonplace across the nation's metro areas, and this project will not only bring the region on par with national practices, but will also help make the West Fargo, Moorhead area one of the most predictable and resilient transportation systems in the country. Really cool thing about this grant is there is no local match. This is 100% grant, and this is going to be implemented to implement the hardware. It's something that we're all new to, so we need to work towards entering into a form of a contract with the DOT to secure the funds, get the design in place, and eventually roll out the system. But it is a very great accomplishment, and again, what this does is it does set the stage for us to eventually potentially have a traffic operations center, which would be more of a regionalized entity that would oversee and manage the overall traffic signals within all of our communities. So that way, right now, West Fargo operates our signals, Fargo operates their signals, Moorhead the same. That eventual traffic operations center would actually manage the whole system, making it integrated and a lot more easily travelable. But again, I just wanted to celebrate the win and make you aware.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Great work. Thank you for your efforts and your staff for applying for that. Anyone else? Commissioner Olson,
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Zundell,
Second.
you stand adjourned. Thank you. Happy holidays to everyone.